Hello everyone and welcome to another HRL tier list episode. In this one we're going to be doing Firestone Firehog Season 4. I figured we only have one other Hog season, so let me just do this one and then we'll snake it back, do some OG seasons for the next couple, and just keep snaking it back and forth is the plan. But yeah, doing this one today. Of course, this was the fill-in for the go-kart series that ended up getting cheesed, infinite, yeah, all that stuff. Not going to get into it in this episode. But yeah, this is that first Hog season that we did at the beginning of the year. Gonna be doing a tier list for it. But first things first, happy birthday, Dua Lipa. It is her birthday today, and she's featured in the tier list for meme reasons, but also real reason being, I don't think I'm gonna put any of these tracks in D tier. I thought this would be funny, and I genuinely don't think I'm gonna put any of these tracks in D tier. So I still want the D tier for future episodes. But I was thinking about it for this season. I was thinking about all the tracks. I don't think I'm gonna put any of them in D tier, so she's just gonna chill in that tier, and it's Dua Lipa birthday tier today. So that's what we've got going on. Let's get into the actual tracks. Let's get into the actual tracks and get into the tier list. So, of course, we started off with Hogtona. Oh man, Hogtona. Hogtona was a fun one. I'm gonna put this in S tier. So Hogtona was an interesting one because is the first track where we tried the straight up hog oval racing. Obviously we did Lakeview and we've had hog tracks with oval turns, but I don't think we've done an oval track until Hogtona with just straight up oval racing for the hogs. Like, I don't think we've done one. It's just the World of Outlaw and the sections and different rallycross tracks. So this was the first go of it. And I was really nervous about it because I made this one and I spent a lot of time on it, and shout out to Armada for helping with it as well. Did a lot of the rocks, of course, but actually a lot of the surrounding rocks and terrain and aesthetics and all that stuff. And really wanted this one to turn out because I want that hog oval racing to be good. I want to do something with it in the future. And it actually worked out. The way that we did it, it was a little bit different. It's not the most, like, realistic Daytona version, but the way it races kind of makes it feel like it. It almost feels like an older Daytona from back in the day when you'd have these massive runs and, well, you don't have to in this version, but like back when you'd actually have to lift and, you know, people could have situations end up like that where you'd have to lift or check up and you could get these big runs. It doesn't really happen the same these days. The cars these days, they're just full speed. It doesn't really happen like that. But anyways, I don't want to, gotta step it up here. I don't want to spend too long. It was a great race. Really fun races. Armada taking an upset overall win, moto win to start off the season. Races were crazy. Didn't know how they were going to finish out the whole way. And yeah, I loved it. I really am looking forward to hopefully racing Hogtona again. I really hope we get to. Claystone. It's going to be a boring tier list, but genuinely, I'm putting this in S as well. We've raced Claystone multiple times now, and this is a rare track from Opix, not being an oval. It's been, well, he's done like Ontario in the past, but, you know, mostly usually doing oval stuff, and I guess there's a little bit of oval incorporation in this one too, since it kind of starts off like that. But I think Claystone's great. Now, for rallycross tracks, obviously different RX tracks going to do different things, that's fine, but in general, I like having a bit of a variety of everything in those rallycross tracks. This one absolutely has a great variety of everything. It's like, it starts off like an oval, then it goes into like a street track, then it goes into the terrain, and then it pulls back into the oval. Like, it's like 3 different tracks in one. Races pretty well. It's got a skill gap to it. There's some tricky sections. It's a cool track. I really like Claystone. There's a reason why we raced it so much, and why we raced it in the grand finals this season as well. It's just a good track. Just gonna go BS tier. It's just gonna be. Monza. I really like our Monza, and it's mostly like the real-life version, but the fun part of it is the Joker and the oval turn, making that last turn of Monza into an oval turn, which also has some real-life ties, because there was or is like an oval track. I don't know if they race it anymore, or if it's even a thing. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I need to catch up on my racing history, but it at least was a thing, so there is some ties there, but it's not, the turn in real life isn't really like that. But we did it that way for fun, and I like that turn. That's one of my favorite oval turns. I think it adds a lot to the track. Have it there in the image. And yeah, I think Monza races pretty well. It's got a good skill gap. It's tricky for how simple it is and how few corners there are in a way for how long of a track it is. But it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun. But I can't put every track S tier. Personally, I'm going to put Monza A tier. But I still think it's really good, and I like racing this track. Sweden, I'm going to go A tier as well for Sweden. It's a good track. I like Sweden. This is, of course, a co-forge that Detail and I did. There we go. This is, of course, a co-forge that we did. And this one, a little bit different than Claystone in that Claystone has that oval section. But this one, well, actually, this track does have an oval turn, too. It's just Claystone has, like, almost like a full oval in it. This one is just like a turn. It doesn't feel like you're going into an oval track, if that makes sense. That's the difference. But this one, similar to Claystone in the sense that it has all that stuff. It's got road course parts. It's got terrain parts. Terrain parts are very tricky, very tight on this one, very unique. I'd say the terrain sections are probably my favorite. The terrain straight and the really tight terrain part before you like jump back onto the track, kind of. And there's that hairpin that goes into the oval turn. Yeah, I like Sweden. I think it's another pretty good track. I'm not gonna put it up there with Hogtona and Claystone, but I just think it's another good track, and I like racing Sweden. There's a reason why we race this one multiple times. Road America. God dang it, this tier list is going to be so boring. I think we did a good job in our first Hog season. I'm putting Road America in S tier as well. I promise all the tier lists aren't going to be like this. This is just... I genuinely think we had a really good schedule this season. But yeah, Road America... mostly credit to Slanch on this one again. I mostly just did bordering. He did most of the actual track, and I think he did a great job. The corners are tricky. There's a lot of turns where you need to figure out your throttle control. And if you don't, and you're not on top of the gears and stuff like that, you kind of get cheesed, and it doesn't really give you the runs into the straightaways that you need. And there's also a lot of turns where you just need to find the right angle to keep that minimum speed up. And you can make a lot of time. Like, a lot of passes are going to happen on slow turns generally on like these types of tracks. But there's a lot of time to be made up on this track in the medium and high speed turns, which is not always a thing. Usually those are the easier turns in a lot of Halo racing. But the nice thing about the Hogs and the nice thing about like the Reach Gooses, for example, is with their loose, like slidey nature, you can actually make up a lot of time. Not always make passes still, but make up a lot of time in those medium and high speed corners. And that especially is shown here at Road America, and that's one of my favorite aspects of this track. And I really like, and also the races have been great. All the races of Road America have been really good. And especially the first one that we did had one of the craziest finishes that we've ever seen to a moto, with a 3-way photo finish with 2 drivers like that, like on top of each other, and then another super close 2-way photo finish ahead or behind them. I don't remember if it was ahead or behind, but one of the two. Crazy moto, and all the motos have been good, and it's just been a great track since we've started racing the Hogs. Catalunya, have to say it like that, right? Catalunya. Details first. Solo Hog Forge getting his other shameless plug here, Solo Hog Forge, in the next season. You'll get a preview of that in the new Road to Indie Hog episode. Don't miss it. But I like Catalunya. I think Catalunya is going to be another A tier. I like this track. I think this one went more towards the, simple side, not too complex. A lot of our Hog tracks before this one were very, and even after this one with like Hog Bay, are just like super long lap times, over a minute lap times. Like that's pretty normal, like minute 15 to a minute 20, almost like a minute 10, like in that range. That's just not what we're doing with goose tracks, right? That's just not a goose track thing. But with the Hogs, we'd been doing that for a lot of tracks. Catalunya was a little bit quicker on the lap time. I think it was like around a minute flat-ish, which doesn't seem like that much of a difference, but it's a difference, especially when a lot of these, again, were like a minute 20. It's a big difference. So this one took a bit of a different direction and kind of opened my eyes to, like, that could still work with the Hogs. And I went with that in the HRL RX season. And that's why a lot of the HRL RX season tracks have quicker lap times. I was like, you know what? Maybe these can work with the Hogs too. And that's why a lot of those tracks are 40, 45, 50-ish seconds. And a lot of those were good too. And I think Catalunya inspired me for that. And I think the track worked pretty well. Specifically, again, the terrain sections. I really liked the terrain sections on this one. All right, I promise they're not all going to be S and A, but kind of getting there, right? Like, there's not that many more options. Okay, so Hog Bay. I mean, come on. I mean, come on. Hog Bay is just going to have to be another S tier. I think Slaunch obviously put a lot of work into this one. And this one, the work done on it lasted a long time too. Like, I remember getting updates on this track for like a month or something like that, because we planned this one out very far ahead. And I was like, yeah, it'd be cool. Since we're kind of like trying all these things with this season, it'd be cool if we had an SX track. You should make it. And Slaunch was like, oh yeah. So then he made it. We eventually got Hog Bay, and I think Hog Bay is great. The flow on this track is insane. There's so many different rhythms that you can run, and it's hard. Not all of them are easy. There's a legit pretty big skill gap to the Hog SX, I would say. And that was something that I was kind of worried about with it. I felt like we had the skill gap with the other tracks down. I didn't know how much there would be for the Supercross races for the Hogs. But it turns out, after racing this track, it might have the biggest skill gap in the Hogs. At least this track. You know, obviously different Hog SX tracks. Some could be easier, some could be harder, but at least as of right now, like, this track might be the hardest Hog track that we have. And it raced pretty well. If there was one downside, it would be that the racing and like the battles weren't that crazy. But honestly, not saying that there were some good ones, but a lot of it was on the first lap. But honestly, that's because it was such a hard track, and there were so many people struggling and making mistakes, and you know, so many incidents like that going down. It was such a tough track. I think it was hard for those battles to continue. So if we did more Hog SX, I think those tracks, including this track, would have better like on-track battling and racing for sure. I think this one, a lot of people were racing the track more than the drivers, which is fine. And I'm grasping at straws here. Like, I'm looking for something to say that's bad, but I think it's a really good track. I loved racing on this one, and the way that the Hog SX works with the gearing and the way that Slaunch built it with the berms and everything, it's great. And when you figure it out and you figure out how to keep up that momentum with it, it's a lot of fun. So it's just gonna have to be another S tier. Just has to be. I promise we will get those other tiers filled. We've got 2 left, so you know, hopefully that's kind of a hint. Lakeview. Now, Lakeview, I am going to put into... I'm going to put Lakeview into C tier. Now, I actually think Lakeview is a good track. Now, I made this one. A lot of this rating of C tier for Lakeview is going to come down to the racing. And I'm going to say why. So I think the racing with Hogs in World of Outlaw, we may experiment more with it in the future. I don't want to completely like write it off, but I think the reason why it's so much cheesier than World of Outlaw on the Gooses is because of how big they are. And also, making these Hog World of Outlaws work is really hard. It's really hard. Like, this track went through a lot of different variants and a lot of different tweaks. And I tried to make multiple other different Hog Woos. And honestly, I didn't like any of them. I probably made 5 other-ish ones, prototypes. I didn't like any of them. This was the only one that I liked. This was the only one that raced well. So that was a downside of making the Hog Woos. Like, just making them work was really difficult. And then I don't think they race as well, because if you think about it, a big component of the World of Outlaw racing is the slide jobs, right? And with the Gooses are a lot smaller, and the lag bubble, therefore, is a lot smaller. And it's, you have more room for error, right? You have more room to work with. It's easier to make those moves happen in the Gooses and, like, not take people out. Now, I think the reason why the racing was a lot cheesier in the Hogs is because the Hogs are bigger. The Hogs are bigger, and they also, like, the Gooses, when you're drifting on those, like, big World of Outlaw tracks that we made with the Gooses, they maintain momentum in the drift really well. The Hogs do not. When the Hogs are drifting, they want to keep losing momentum. The Gooses keep it up pretty well. So those 2 factors, right? The Hogs, like, losing that momentum when you're getting that drift going, and them being bigger, wider, just leads to cheesier racing, right? There's a lot less room for error with the hogs. A lot more people going to be getting put into walls, people going to be getting wrecked, and stuff like that. But at the same time, that's just what World of Outlaw racing is. Like, to make passes, you're going to need to make those aggressive moves. So it's just kind of a conundrum with Hog Woo racing. So that's just something that's kind of unfortunate about it. It may not be the best type of racing. I still think, even though we may do it, and even though it can still be fun, I just think World of Outlaw is just not the best thing for the hogs. I think it definitely shines more in the gooses. And that's kind of the reason why this is in C tier. Albert Park, last track specifically made for the grand finals, street track. I'm going to put this one in B tier. We got a C tier and a B tier finally. I think Albert Park is decent. I just don't think the racing was as good on this track as like the other road courses, being, you know, Monza and Road America, which, to be fair, that's going to happen on a lot of street tracks, right? That'll probably be the case on, that'll probably be the case on most of the street tracks, but we'll see. Going into Indy Hog, the testing that we've done, I think these might be a little bit better than Albert Park for racing wise. We'll see when the season starts. We're just gonna have to kind of wait on that one. But I think it will be, because we're taking what we learned from Albert Park and applying that, and I think it'll be better. I think it was a good first attempt at a street track, but I definitely think the future ones that we race will be better for racing both ways, like racing other drivers, and also like the track itself in terms of like skill gap, stuff like that. Which I think this track was fine enough for that. It was mostly just like the racing with other people. Also, the Joker was not great. I think I could have designed the Joker better. That's another reason why I'd mark it down. Okay, so there you have it. Let me know if you agree, disagree on any of these. I'm honestly happy with this tier list. 4 S tiers probably looks a little ridiculous, but like genuinely, and then ordering them, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm not gonna, like, even though I usually do that, I don't know if these are ordered. Like, honestly, I think I like this. I think I like how this is ordered. But the S tier, dude, I don't know, man. I don't know, man. I feel like Road America is the best overall in terms of like the balance of the racing and stuff like that. Maybe something like that for the S tier ordering? I don't know. The S tier ordering can honestly go... It depends on the day. It depends on the day. I like all these a lot. Same thing for the A tiers. This is a really, really hard one to do. But anyways, again, let me know. Agree, disagree on any of these. Next week, we're going to snake it back to the past. And I think I'm going to do a quick overview of the other main series season in Reach. There's only like a couple new tracks, so I'm not going to do its whole like entire tier list. I'll just address the couple tracks that were raced in that one that weren't in the first one, and then I'll get into Halo 4, and we'll start with Halo 4 Go-Kart. We'll do some Halo 4 Go-Kart tier list action. That'll be next week. So again, hope you guys enjoyed the episode. More Indie Hog coming, more of these coming, and the season is approaching rapidly, very soon. Happy birthday, Dua Lipa. Definitely watching this episode. And see you guys in the next one.